near the sea, like Marseille. But I'm not here as the head of the digital library, which I am at the university, but rather as co-chair of a working group within the Committee for Open Science in France. And as the title of the presentation indicates it, we will talk about the current state of open science in France, and specifically about the building bibliodiversity group that I am co-chairing. The co-chair is Jacques Lafay, who is a researcher in physics at the Sorbonne University. He wanted to come and make the presentation with me, but unfortunately he couldn't attend, and he sends his apologies. So the first two parts will focus on the national level, then I will try to illustrate also with some institutional level case studies and try to have some concluding words about the global scale. A few words of context. First, maybe you know that July 2018 had been a special month for France because there were two major events occurring. And I'm not talking about Bastille Day, but on July the 15th, this happened. So for those of you who are not keen on sports, this is the football French team celebrating their victory on the FIFA World Cup in Moscow. But a few days earlier, there was another major event occurring in Lille on July 4th. Maybe less press coverage, I concede, but in my opinion, something that is maybe in the long term has a greater impact for society. And it was the presentation of the National Plan for Open Science by the Mrs. Frédérique Vidal, who is the Minister for Higher Education and Research in the French government. And this plan is very comprehensive on all aspects of open science, and some specific items in this plan are targeting bibliodiversity. Open access mandate, but the second point is the creation of an open science fund, and I will talk about it a bit later. And three objectives directly related to bibliodiversity: explore new business models for open access journals and books, encourage university presses and publishing houses that make their publications available through open access, and when publication charges are required, they should be paid only to fully open access publication, hence not the hybrid payment. So this was a major step forward in France for open science, but this policy did not come out of the blue, and there were, in the previous 2 years, some preparatory steps that were setting the ground for this national policy. The first step was in 2016, a law that was adopted by the French Parliament, which is named Law for a Digital Republic, which covers all aspects of the digital world, digital economy, but one specific article was designed in order to give French-based researchers, whether French or foreign, but as long as they are based in a French institution, they gain the right to deposit their accepted author manuscript in a digital repository, regardless of the contract they sign with the publisher, so regardless of the publisher's policy. I don't go into detail because it's not directly related to bibliodiversity, but this law really was an occasion to make an acculturation of the French researchers regarding the stakes of open access and open science. The second step, 1 year later, was the announcement of the Jussieu call for open science and bibliodiversity. And in this call, Sherifa talked a bit about it. We found these statements: development of innovative scientific publishing models must be a budget priority. Article 2 or Article 8, priority should be given to business models that do not involve any payments, neither for authors to have their text published, nor for readers to access them. So this echoes what we just heard, isn't it? The open science policy was a major milestone, a game changer in France, and in the wake of this announcement last July. There is a Committee for Open Science that was established. Committee for Open Science gathering around 200 people and working on open source software, open data, skills, incentives and rewards, open publication, and bibliodiversity. So the working group for bibliodiversity, which I'm co-chairing and I've seen some members in the room here, we tried to, when we were constituting the group, have a balance between researchers, librarians, and publishers from the public sector. And half of the members, of the 25 active members, are researchers, which is very good. And amongst the researchers, we wanted to also have a balance between science, technology, medicine, and humanities and social sciences fields. One mission for this 1 year working group, we are at the end of our work. It's working on this National Open Access Fund, Open Science Fund, and also on assessment criteria. So we were at the beginning of September 2018, we were ready to work on this mission in the starting blocks, and then something came along. Plan S, maybe you heard of it. And yes, very interesting. And so we were asked as a working group to work on implementation recommendation for the French funding body who is member of Coalition S, one of the 10 or 12 funding members, Agence Nationale de la Recherche. So we worked on these recommendations. We also contributed to the feedback that was asked by Coalition S at the beginning of the year. And I will not go into details, both texts are online in English translation, but one of our major concerns when drafting these documents was to make sure that Plan S could be an enabler for bibliodiversity and not the opposite. I don't know if you read the amended policy that was released 2 days ago, and I've not been too much into the details, but I think it's quite reassuring to hear that, for instance, Diamond publishing is, of course, eligible for Plan S. But our major work was on the drafting of a set of criteria. We call them exemplarity criteria for open science initiatives, and these 43 criteria were divided between infrastructures platforms on the one hand, and on the other hand, editorial contents, journals, books. And during the literature review, we were very much inspired by an article that was just cited by Lynn, Bilder, and Nealon on principles for open scholarship infrastructures. That was really inspirational for the working group. We also looked at what OASPA has been working on, writing on this issue, DOAJ, and in January or February, Spark and COA together also made public some kind of recommendations. These standards, some people told me they're quite high level, and I must say that maybe no infrastructure meets all of these criteria yet, but our idea was to set some kind of high-level ideal that could be achieved in the mid to long term. We tackled in this criteria all aspects: governance, integrity, legal issues, economic model, sustainability, technical issues. So in order to see if the infrastructure, if the journal, if the collection meets what we call this exemplarity criteria. And for each criteria, some are essential, some highly recommended, some only desired. And the work was quite smooth within the working group, except for one issue we just talked about. One major debate: shall we, in this criteria, allow APC-based funding of APC-based journals or BBC-based books, or shall we dismiss them? And there was strong discussion, strong opinions about it, and we reached some kind of consensus by allowing them, but stating that non-APC and non-BPC based initiatives would have some kind of, would be preferred. Okay, so some kind of common middle ground. These criteria have been validated by the steering committee last month. They are now online, but only in French, and an English translation will be available in the next 2 weeks, and we are really looking forward to feedback if you're interested in that. So now our last work before the working group separates is the work on the National Open Science Fund. We are working on a call for projects that will be issued normally in September 2019. The average amount is around 2 million euros for 2019, and so it will be also pluriannual, so maybe between a bit more than 2 million each year for funding open science. The first call will only be targeted at publishing initiatives. No data, no open source software. The next years it will be different. So the exemplarity criteria will be used to make the assessment and to make the selection. As it is something that is funded mainly by the ministry, we are looking mainly at French-based initiatives, open science initiatives, open publishing initiatives, but we really want also to dedicate a part of the funding to international initiatives, and we are envisioning to do that through a cooperative initiative like SCOS. Okay? So SCOS has already made a call for proposal, has already made the assessment for this important international infrastructure, and France is planning to become an active member and to bring funding to the SCOS selected initiatives. So that's it for the national level. I plan to present 4 case studies, but for the sake of time, I think I will limit myself to only mentioning 2 of them. Going from national to local, the first one is the launch in last December of a network of journal incubators, new journals, journals that are only distributed on the paper, wanting to move to digital dissemination, journals that want to change their business model. So for now, 12 institutions, universities mainly, are part of this network, representing 87 journals, and they work on editorial technical issues in order to make the quality higher and to have some common ground on quality issues, and the goal of transitioning towards open. And they also want to work with nationwide infrastructures. You maybe, while we take the coffee, you see there is Open Edition, there is Metop. So these are 2 main important infrastructures. So this is one of grant coming from the institutions. One example. Another one is was the launch of the network. Another one is the reallocation of funds from big deal subscriptions. And I will take the example of my university. We decided to cancel in 2017 our subscription to the Springer Jones Big Deal. So there was many causes: budget constraint, price increase, decreasing usage trend. But the cancellation was decided by the university president, and there was not much debate. The consequences from the academic community was like silence, total silence. This is quite, it's reassuring in the sense that you are not in the line for taking bullets, but it's also quite, it's a bit disturbing. Then what are we for? So, but the main outcome, we couldn't redirect all of it because there was budget constraint. We decided to use a part of the savings to fund initiatives that were, in our view, academic-centered, transparent, and this is the list of the project that we funded, almost all of them are non-APC or non-BPC based. And we were very happy. This was last year, and we continued this year, and maybe OPB could be on the list anytime soon. Some rapid thoughts for conclusion. I've talked about the national level, the local level. Now, what did our work mean for us at the global level? The first thought is that building bibliodiversity, unlike World Cup, Football World Cup, is not a competition between the countries. I've presented France, and it's not intending to say what we have done, etc. Many other countries have done a lot, and the only winner on our work should be knowledge, science, and the society at large. Hence, coordination is needed between countries, between all the relevant stakeholders, national organization. If each country funds its national publishing structures, who is taking care of the international ones? It's not very efficient if one structure like Archive has to ask the French and the Germans, and so maybe we should also, yes, initiatives like SCOS, I think, are paving the way. It's very interesting. And we have already, of course, have had exchanges with SCOS, with OA 2020 DE, with investing in open infrastructures, and my feeling is that the goal is shared, that bibliodiversity is something that everybody agrees on, but now we have to align policies and strategies. And I'd just like to let the last word of the presentation to a French very big thinker, maybe you know him, Kylian Mbappé. He said this about himself, he said the story is only just beginning. But I would say bibliodiversity has already some years. The story is not beginning, but it's up to us to make it flourish in the next decades. So thank you very much for